Hey everyone, thank you for hanging out with us on First and Pod. You know the drill. Subscribe, rate, review, 5 stars, tell a friend, text a friend, call a friend, Zoom a friend, FaceTime a friend. Tell them about your favorite NFL podcast. Pony, I don't even think we're going to need to do guest week or guest month this offseason. I feel like there's not been any slowdown in news. We've been just powering through ourselves.
And this is the last Thursday night we're taping without a game until February. Because we get preseason, your guys in action against Houston. My pick to win the Super Bowl next Thursday night in Canton. I should drive to that game, and you should have your station pay for you to go.
Our morning show is going, which is a real outrage.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Were they bigger Devin Hester guys than you, or is that
they were like, venerable beat writers and stuff, like when
venerable.
It's a good word for talking about the dying industry of newspapers, don't you think?
Yeah, it makes someone out to be old and respected, but kind of like a dinosaur past their prime.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment of these guys?
They're very talented, kind people, but yes. But no, they'll do a great job, and yeah, but I mean that'd be kind of crazy. It could be the first game of the season and the last game of the season, and week 2 Sunday Night Football is Bears Texans. People thinking Caleb's going to play. Never play the starters in the Hall of Fame.
Well, maybe we can get to that in the Bears portion of this.
I know, but I'm just saying it's the buzz right now is that the Bears are giving real thought to playing. But we had a lot of teams report this week, so we're going to go rapid fire here and do biggest storyline for each team who's reported.
Why don't you start? Because I think you have the Cowboys first.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is probably among all of the 20-plus teams we're going to talk about, probably the biggest story and the best place to begin here.
Sure. Well, CeeDee Lamb holding out is massive because everyone else is like Jerry Jones is defining all in as not being all in, but he's just like saying weird things. And Dak is talking about his contract as being business. And Mike is talking about his contract like, yeah, of course it's on my mind, but I know I'm going to get mine. And CeeDee's not there.
And did you mention Parsons yet?
I just said, like, Micah's talking about it in the
sense I thought you said Mike is in Big Mike McCarthy.
Oh, no. McCarthy is just, his public stance is that he's fine as a lame duck head coach. But no, I said Micah. I apologize for the slur. I've had 3 sips of wine. But my contention the whole offseason has been that Dallas's contract stuff was going to be great offseason sports talk fodder, but not really matter come the season. And because McCarthy's been paid, Dak's been paid, Micah, they can franchise his standard. If CeeDee's going to make a real thing about it, that disrupts everything. He has more targets than anyone in the NFL the last 2 years. Like if this is going to be more than a 5-day, 10-day holdout, like if he really does a Chris Jones thing and takes it into the season, that changes the entire calculus of the Cowboys because there are few, if any, skill position players in the NFL that take up a higher volume of target share than CeeDee Lamb. So it's a massive story if he's serious about this holdout.
Well, and he led the league in catches last year. Very rarely in this business do I feel like in football, other sports maybe because they're not 365 like this is. Does a story catch the national media with its pants down? And sometimes on this podcast, we'll get out ahead of things, which is one of the many reasons why we're just climbing the charts here, is one of the fastest growing NFL podcasts in America.
Oh, yeah.
But the CeeDee Lamb thing, it's like, no one thought this would happen, and there's been no real opinion on what plan B is. You know, we've spent, and I've done this in Pittsburgh as a market that needs a wide receiver, really since March, we've talked about a Brandon Ayuk trade.
Right.
Has there been any discussion of a CeeDee Lamb trade? It should be on the table. I mean, if the guy's a holdout and they're going to pay those other people, I mean, it's not out of the question, Danny, that that's the solution or the end game here. And if
So
it's
I
not,
said on
at least
TV,
how
I
about
said on
people in our
TV,
line of work kind of at least weighing it as a possibility and discussing the hypotheticals of where he could get traded and who he makes sense for.
I said on TV that it makes no sense to move on from Dak and it makes no sense to move on from Micah, but that you can at least make an argument to move on from CeeDee Lamb. The argument to move on from CeeDee Lamb is there are great receivers in every draft class, and we've seen, whether it be Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins or Tyreek Hill or A.J. Brown, like we've seen legit number one receivers be traded for massive draft compensation. There's a completely reasonable argument that you don't want to pay a receiver $30+ million a year when there's always more cheap labor coming, and that CeeDee Lamb is very good, but he is a product of volume. Like, he's not as good as Justin Jefferson. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah, of course.
And you'd agree he's not as good as Jamar Chase.
Yes.
Right? Like, he gets 180.
But close. I mean, that's a much closer one for me.
Yeah, it right. Like he's to me, he's excellent. But if I put A.J. Brown in that situation and I gave him 180 targets, I don't know how much worse he is than CeeDee Lamb.
One of the reasons why he has 180 targets is because their next best receiver is Brandon Cooks, and then the next best guy after that is Jake Ferguson, and their starting running back is Zeke Elliott right now. He matters a lot to Dallas, which is what his leverage is, but players better than him, like Devontae Adams at his peak, better. Tyreek Hill, obviously better. DeAndre Hopkins, better. People better than CeeDee Lamb in a vacuum have been traded. But if they're going to do that, why the hell would Dak Prescott come back? Like, you would really just be blowing the whole thing up. So I don't think that they're prepared to lose CeeDee Lamb. Well, they've got a lot of loose ends they need to tie up in the next month and a half, Danny, before we get to week one.
I'm going to hit the under on the thing that I say every pod. We've got to pick up the pace.
Okay. Bills, first up, Josh Allen. Reports to camp being called overrated by an anonymous NFL executive. Is that person right?
No. That person is not right. You know my stance on Josh Allen. He is the second best player in football. He is the offense.
Even though he doesn't have the credentials of any real quarterback that we've ever put that high on an NFL player ranking list, ever.
That's fine.
He is not an MVP, and he hasn't won a championship. And those are the two things. You need to have one of those two things to lay claim as a quarterback to either the best or second best player in the league.
Okay, well then so who's the second best player in the league?
Well, there's a number of guys. We made our great list when we put together our all-11 team.
Right. But Joe Burrow doesn't have an MVP or a championship.
I wouldn't put Joe Burrow too.
Who would you put?
I might put TJ Watt too.
Oh, stop.
What? I might put your boy Trent Williams too.
Wait a minute.
No, I wouldn't. I just said that to mess with you.
I would not do that. Wait, what are you
I might put Christian McCaffrey too.
And okay, what MVP or championship does TJ Watt have?
Hold on a second. Quarterbacks are measured differently than individual players. I'm saying for a quarterback to ascend to that point, he needs to have one of those two things. Barry Sanders, he did win an MVP, but but he didn't ever win anything in the playoffs other than that one playoff game when they lost to Dallas in the NFC Championship game. Like, we hold quarterbacks to a different standard. The team winning has a lot to do with how we rank quarterbacks. It has always been that way. And you are trying to start up this crusade almost on your own, and some of the analytics people too, where now that is less important. And I'm not going to stand for it. The guy that says Jordan is better than LeBron can therefore cannot say that Josh Adams having no MVP or no team success, deserves to be the second best player in the NFL.
I watch the games. That's my answer. I watch the games. So no, that executive is wrong. He's an excellent player. There's no one else you'd rather start a franchise with other than Mahomes.
CJ Stroud. So Josh Allen is better at his job than Christian McCaffrey?
No, but his job is more important.
Okay. That's your loophole. That's your debate team champion
It's
loophole.
not a
His job's more
loophole.
important.
That's
What?
not a loophole. Justin Tucker can't be the second best player in the NFL. His job doesn't matter that much. All right, New York Giants. Do they regret doing off-season Hard Knocks?
I want to add a second team to pick up the pace. The Patriots. Because the thing that everybody's talking about from the last Hard Knocks episode is the GM of the Giants trying to make that deal with New England to move up to the third pick to get Drake May. And I have a hard time figuring out where you come down on that, because on one hand, I know you like Drake May, but on the other hand, you said on numerous podcasts that the Patriots might be better off not taking a quarterback because of other problems. And it sounds like they were offered the Giants first, next year's Giants first, which could be a great pick, and another pick, a day 2 pick. So should New England have taken that deal?
Listen, having the quarterback, I think Drake May is going to be the second best quarterback in this class.
So do I.
I'm on the record with that. I think that Drake May checks all the boxes. They just shouldn't play him. Those two things I do not think are in conflict. If you play him too early, when he has no offensive talent, that can set him back. Like JJ McCarthy might perform better on his rookie contract than Drake May does because of the situation that he's in. So
would you rather have the extra first round pick and the extra day 2 pick in JJ McCarthy than just Drake May?
No, I'd rather have Drake May.
Okay.
I'd rather have Drake May, but what I'm saying is if I was New England, I would not play Drake May. And normally I want to play these guys as soon as possible to find out, but this is the Bryce Young example. Do they have nothing to help Drake May? If he plays right away, he better be a miracle worker. So I think
they're going to be pressured to play him because they're not going to be good, and their fans don't want to watch Jacoby Brissett from now until New Year's Day.
All right, so you added New England here. So is it back to me?
Sure.
Okay. 9 play callers in 9 years for Jalen Hurts.
You love that stat.
It's freaking unbelievable.
It's quickly becoming Danny Parkins' favorite thing to reference when he's on a podcast or a national TV program.
It's an unbelievable statistic. So will he get a grace period? Because the contract kicks in. It's Philly.
No, he gets no grace period from anyone.
I agree with you. But you would agree that that's insane.
Yes, but I would not argue that he gets a grace period, and I'm not sure who is. Definitely not the Philadelphia sports market.
Well, no, I know that, but the question is about fairness.
What did you pay the guy?
$250 million.
Thank you. You don't get fairness when you get $250 million. You could walk in that door as offensive coordinator for them, and I would want results.
By the way, there's no way I'd be the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Why have you been playing college football 25?
No, I haven't played video games since the PS3, but I just watch football.
Yeah, make that point. That's, again, Danny Parkins' eye test as a guy that played no football at any point in his life, and his understanding of football for most of his life was getting high out of his mind and watching games. You, for having that background, come back to the eye test an alarming amount, brother.
Yeah, and I'm right. I'm right. I know this. I went and drafted Mitch Trubisky too.
But then you bet on him to win MVP.
Yeah, but that paid for itself in content.
All right, next I have the Jets. Already looks like a circus to me.
Yeah.
Makes me rethink season prediction. In the immortal word of Mike Meltzer, thoughts?
What was your season prediction on them?
Going to win the division and make the playoffs.
Circus is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not. We've seen, Brady brought a circus plenty. Dallas has been a circus, but they win 12 games. Now, they don't win in the playoffs, but it doesn't stop them from being a productive and led league in scoring. Travis Kelce's dating the most famous woman in the world. Circus. Circus is not necessarily a bad thing if you can manage it. To me, the Jets' question is very simply a question of injury. If they get a lucky injury season from Rodgers and Mike Williams and Tyron Smith, like, it's a lot of dudes. But if they're old injury-prone players, not that Mike Williams is old, but you understand the point, like, all have healthy seasons at the same time, that's a top 10 roster in the league. But they're just banking on injury. On injury luck and on Rodgers coming back. Because I don't agree that people think like, oh, Rodgers has completely fallen off. There was dysfunction at the end in Green Bay, and then he was hurt. I think that Rodgers is an incredibly accurate, smart quarterback who will play good football and get the ball to Garrett Wilson at a really high volume. Like, I'm going to have a bet on Garrett Wilson to lead the league in receiving this year. So I think that there's plenty of value in the Jets, and if they can handle the circus, but they can handle the circus if they stay healthy. I think their whole thing is about injuries.
Well, they're not off to a good start where Rodgers admitted that he got fined. So they did hold him to that Egypt trip, and they didn't let him off the hook. They made him pay out of his pocket to go there during minicamp, which was mandatory. And the Reddick thing, you trade for a guy, and then you can't get a deal done with him, and he's AWOL to start training camp. Circus of star player who's won Super Bowl dates very famous woman versus that arguably, I wouldn't say for sure the two best players because they have Sauce Gardner and Wilson, like you mentioned, but Aaron Rodgers and Hassan Reddick, two of your 5 best players, and the guy at the most important position, already having major drama before the season starts in a market where they always have drama and they never seem to be able to overcome that. It's not a great start to the season, Danny.
No, I would agree. I would agree with that. But there's going to be drama around that team regardless. Washington, is Jaden Daniels ready?
He doesn't have a choice, but I'll say he's ready to play. Yes, he better be ready to play. He went to Arizona State and then transferred and played at LSU for a couple of seasons. Okay, this is not Mitch Trubisky, who you brought up earlier, or Anthony Richardson, who we saw for a handful of games and looked like he was ready, even though he did not have a lot of college starting experience. The guy's got to play, my opinion. First-year coach, I get that. Offense has some nice pieces, nothing great. Offensive line is not the Lions line or anything like that either, or Eagles line. But, I don't think this is a case where they're better off making him wait until week 4, week 5 of the season and throwing him to the Wolves then.
Listen, I tend to agree with you. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of his, but it's a pretty good situation for a rookie. It's pretty good when you factor in Dotson and McLaurin and, the positive vibes around new coach, new ownership. Like everyone's excited, but like you're not the total focus of everything because of all the other positive change in the org. You're not really expected to win anytime soon. Like everyone's just like, be better than the last thing. And the last thing was Sam Howell and a 5th round pick. And like other people are going to be getting attention off of you because of new ownership mainly. Like it's not the best situation we've seen a rookie go into. I think Caleb is in that conversation. We've seen rookies go to more stable organizations, like Mahomes going to Alex Smith, Andy Reid, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill. Like, I'm not saying it's the best situation we've ever seen, but it's a sneaky, really good situation for a rookie. And he's going to run. Like his production as a rookie will be helped by his legs. So I don't think he's going to look completely overwhelmed, even though I think his ceiling's pretty low.
I'm going to call an audible then on that last point. And yes, I'm going to go to the Colts because of what you said about Daniels running. The scuttlebutt coming out of Indianapolis is that they don't plan to hold Anthony Richardson back in the run game. Is that smart?
Yes. Of course. You don't draft that guy and then say don't run. That would be insane. Like, the hope is that he's the 99th percentile athlete when he's young and cheap and healthy and athletic on the rookie contract, and then he develops over time and he runs as like his changeup and his passing game is his fastball. But right now, the running game's the fastball. Like,
yes.
The mobility's the fastball. You don't draft that guy to then put handcuffs on him and live in fear.
I read into don't hold back in the run game as they're going to feature it. They're going to make it the most dangerous part for an opposing defense of their offense, and that's what they should do. And that's only going to make Steichen, who I think is considered a fabulous offensive mind for what he did there last year with Minshew, and Jonathan Taylor didn't look like himself after his holdout situation and some of the injuries. I think that's only going to make him look like a better head coach if he really does take Richardson in that direction. And that's why I will continue to say this on this podcast. They are the ultimate wild card dark horse team for me in the AFC, because if that guy is the Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson rolled into one player,
yes,
then they absolutely have a chance to win double-digit games there this season and possibly even unseat my team, Houston, and win the AFC South.
I'm you know me, man. I'm 100% with you. I was blown away by how mature Richardson looked. It was 4 games, but I thought he looked awesome. Detroit, this is a little bit more niche, but they didn't do anything when they lost Josh Reynolds. Is Jameson Williams finally ready to be the 12th overall pick in the draft and be a real legitimate starting NFL wide receiver?
I don't think so, and I don't know if he needs to be. And here's why. Because
interesting. Reviews out of camp are very positive so far.
Well, congratulations on all his camp success. I watched Kenny Pickett look like Joe Montana in training camp last year, and look at the good it did for me. I don't think he needs to be because of Laporta and Gibbs. And I expect both of those guys to be the second and third options for Detroit in the passing game after Amon-Ra St. Brown. The wide receiver 2 is actually their 4th option. And that's why I think they did not spring or go crazy to replace the guy. You know why you couldn't bring Reynolds back? You don't want that guy. He's a buzzkill. You can't bring him back. Okay? Did you want to invite me back after I ruined the Sopranos finale with my antics? No. Okay? You didn't want to have to look me in the eye.
I honestly can't believe we're still friends.
Right? So that's the situation here. He personifies what happened in the NFC Championship game. He is the scapegoat. He's the person who I think of in terms of players for blowing that game. So he's a marginal player. He's a mediocre player. I have no problem with what they did at wide receiver 2 and jettisoning Reynolds. And also, Dan Campbell, don't bring Hulk Hogan in. Okay, there's too much political heat right now with Hogan. Your team's in a great spot. You don't need to have Hulk Hogan at Lions training camp and to have a lightning rod situation there when you're America's most beloved team. Keep the Hulkster out of there.
I agree. Like, not because I'm like outraged at the idea of a football team associating with someone who I disagree with politically, but because like I'm not under any false illusion that like my guess is Aiden Hutchinson and I are not completely aligned, like rich people and whatever. But do you think any of these guys care about Hulk Hogan?
No, he wrestled when I was 5 years old. Okay. Right, and I'm 38. Right. I'd be the oldest guy on the team.
They'd be like, who the hell is Hulk Hogan?
The Bengals. Everyone's talking about Burrow's hair. Why not Jamar Chase? I'm going to go back to what I said about CeeDee Lamb. He's holding out now, or holding in, whatever it is. He's refusing to practice. Meanwhile, T. Higgins, who has a legitimate reason to not practice and not participate, signed his franchise tag early because he didn't want drama. He didn't want controversy. He didn't want noise. It reminds me of like when you think you're in cahoots with somebody, you think you have a pact with someone. Okay, we're in this all for one, one for all. and you go in and do something and the other person's like, well, actually, I'm in it for myself. F you. That's kind of how this feels like to me. A little bit of a mini betrayal in this whole let's worry about money later and let's try to win a Super Bowl this year in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair read on the situation. Like Jamar Chase is better than T. Higgins, but T. Higgins, they've made it pretty clear that they're choosing Jamar Chase long term and not T. So that is that, and I mean Trey Hendrickson has his contract issue with them also. The hair does look good. Did you ever bleach your tips or anything like that?
No, and I love Burrow's swag. I would give it all up for Burrow. As a franchise that needs that don't take that sexually.
I didn't take it sexually. You said I was just curious what you meant.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if he were available,
I mean, there's no debate about paying Joe Burrow. No one disagrees.
No, I know. I'm jealous as a guy that has him in the division. I think he kicks ass. I think he rocks. And he went to Amsterdam for Fashion Week. If I went to Amsterdam, I would die.
I've been to Amsterdam. You would not die. You would just get really, really, really baked. And maybe spend too much money in the red light district. I could see you doing
which
that.
I think could kill me. But anyways, you're up next.
Yeah, that could happen. Minnesota Vikings. They signed Darisaw, franchise left tackle. They obviously this offseason signed Justin Jefferson. Do we need to give credit to Minnesota? Sneaky good org.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
right? Like got a lot out of Cousins, but didn't give a 35-year-old $180 million off a ruptured Achilles. Got a quarterback that people like. Have Jefferson, have Addison, have a franchise left tackle under contract, have a head coach who's a play caller who comes off the system that everybody in the league is running. Sneaky good org, Minnesota.
I would agree with that. I thought that they did a good job assembling a team. I thought they played, even though they won 13 games 2 years ago, I actually thought the team was better than how they performed. I thought that they left meat on the bone. I thought their defense was way better personnel-wise than being ranked the worst defense by total yards in the league that year. I thought they were actually, and we saw Flores bring it out of them last year. They were much better. They went from worst to average on defense. I agree with you on that. But here's the problem with that. That's like my Steelers. Where does it get you? People can praise the Steelers all they want for being a model organization. Well, whip-de-friggin' do. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. What's Minnesota done? They had the Minneapolis Miracle. That's it. And that was with Case Keenum. So they can, it's like hanging a banner as a baseball organization because Baseball America voted you the best front office in the sport. If you're not winning, who gives a damn? So I'm with you. I think their process is good, but the results just aren't there for this team.
All right, let's pick up the pace. We got way too many teams left, and we've already been going.
I love when you say that. Dolphins. Tua not really practicing as he waits for a contract. What the hell's the holdup there?
The holdup is, would you feel comfortable giving him $280 million with $250 guaranteed?
But I feel comfortable doing that? No, I would not.
Well, that's the holdup.
But you have said countless times in even higher profile places than this podcast, there's a have and have nots. It's binary. It's black and white. Do you have a good quarterback? Yes or no? The answer for them is yes.
No.
So what's the holdup?
Listen, I think they will pay him. I think that all of these teams end up paying their guys. There are almost no examples of teams not paying their guy when they have someone who proves who can be good. But that doesn't mean that they don't nickel and dime it. And it gets complicated when a guy like Tua is like, okay, pay me more than Joe Burrow because I'm next and the cap has gone up. That's when it gets complicated.
Maybe I'll end up entirely misreading the situation, and this theory will blow up in my face, and he'll sign a contract extension this weekend, and I'll look like an outright fool. But
you think they're not signing him?
Hold on. The owner lost a draft pick for tampering when Tua was on the roster because he wanted to bring Tom Brady, 43 years old, to go play for the Dolphins. He was interested in Deshaun Watson again while Tua was on the team. The guy that cuts the checks there, even though he would think had to put his seal of approval on drafting Tua in the first round, I'm just not convinced Ross is a Tua fan. And ultimately, the owner, it has the final say in a decision this big. So that's my theory or hypothesis on why it wasn't like Trevor Lawrence and didn't get done 2 weeks ago or a month ago. I don't think the owner's comfortable. A guy that's only had one fully healthy season going back to the end of his career at Alabama, I don't think he feels comfortable giving that amount of guaranteed money to this quarterback. I'm sorry, I don't.
I mean, you don't have to apologize to me. Apologize to Tua. Atlanta Falcons. Do we see Michael Penix play NFL football this year?
Great question. No, I don't think we do. Because I'm kind of on the Atlanta bandwagon. My dad lives down there.
I told you.
My dad lives down there. He's acting. He's in season 2 of Tulsa King. Go check that out.
Oh, wow.
With Sylvester Stallone. Yep.
Well,
and
to use your phrase, congrats on all his success.
Yes. And so I was talking to him when he was up for my daughter's birthday, and he was selling me hard on Atlanta this year. He lives there. And I don't disagree. Now, the Achilles thing, you wonder about that with any player, let alone a guy that's in his late 30s. But I do see teams every year. There's usually one team that gets a bump from a new coach. And Doug Peterson in Jacksonville would be an example of that a couple years ago. I think it's going to happen here, Danny, with the Falcons in that division. I think they're going to win 10 games. And unless they're resting Cousins in week 18 because they've clinched, I think that he will start every game and throw for more than 30 touchdown passes this year.
Dude, I've been saying it for weeks and weeks and weeks. I think that they're this year's Detroit Lions. I'm 100% with you. Who's your next
Chargers? Team? Awkward Jim Harbaugh picking up where he left off at Michigan, talking about the first day of training camp being like when you're in the womb and you come out and you're birthed and there's placenta and afterbirth there and you're finally like a part of the world, and that's what the first day of training camp is like. And everyone in this room is like, what is this guy is so weird. He's so strange. He's so kooky. If Jim Harbaugh had not had success with the 49ers, and that's going back a few years now, there would absolutely be commentary around him, like Steve Spurrier going to the Washington football team or any of these college coaches, Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. He is a different cat, man. And it worked the last time he was here. Like him, patting guys down and giving them fist bumps and jumping into players before games and chugging whole milk and all the stuff he did. Who's got it better than us? BS. Like great in college, and it worked the last time in San Francisco before he alienated his general manager and lost a power struggle. I think that this team will make the playoffs. If they don't, I'll be like, man, maybe he was better off in college, Danny, because he says things that make you think, how the frig is this guy going to relate to today's NFL players?
Dude, he's a grade A wackadoodle. I don't get him at all, but he wins.
But he acts like he's a high school JV coach is the way he sounds.
I know, but the guy wins. I don't get it. I don't know how he does it, but I also don't think that I would necessarily relate to like Dan Campbell. Football coaches are not necessarily all speaking to you and me. Like, I think that I would get along with Mike McDaniel, but I don't think I'd really have a lot in common with Dan Campbell. Jim Harbaugh is a crazy person, but football people are crazy. I think he's
but you agree that there are guys that are meant for high school, meant for college, and meant for the pros, obviously. Look at Nick Saban.
Right, but do you think Nick Saban doesn't win in the NFL if he gets Drew Brees?
Of course he does. We've gone over that before. I mean, you said you would have taken Dante Culpepper just like him.
Right, so I don't I'm not. I don't understand the magic of Jim Harbaugh, but he's not. I'm not his intended audience. You like Carolina. Can you sell our audience on why they're not going to be a disaster?
You know what? I forgot to talk about this on one of the podcasts, one of the last two. Miles Sanders, shout out to Miles Sanders, Booby Sanders, Woodland Hills, outside of Pittsburgh, same high school that produced the great Jason and Joy Taylor. Excellent dude. He was my co-coach at the Cam Hayward celebrity softball game. Miles Sanders came back to Pittsburgh, and we talked about you. And I said, Miles, this is completely off the record. I've been drinking heavily. I think your quarterback has a chance to be good. And we had a very nice off the record conversation about Bryce Young, and people like you specifically. I almost had him record something calling you out and ripping you for being so anti Bryce Young. And so he is on board, and he just basically said that the guy's accuracy is impeccable. He's never been around a more accurate quarterback. In warm-ups, he sees other quarterbacks and other teams, guys he played with in Philadelphia. No one's been more accurate than this guy. And he completely blames it on the upheaval and the turmoil that went on there last year.
Are you familiar with what off the record means?
Yeah, I know. I didn't get into the real, like, meaty stuff. Like, I just gave you, there's a lot more to it that I'm not privileged to say. But I do have permission to talk about more of the
macro
general speak. Yes. The actual, some of the anecdotes he gave me about how things really went down there last year, I cannot get into. No, unfortunately.
Yeah, that felt like a betrayal on some level. But I'm glad that Miles Sanders knows who I am and disagrees with my take.
Oh, and he I think saw you on Cowherd.
Oh, good.
Guys, watch, Danny.
Well, it's a big show.
And listen.
It's a big show. Yeah, well, this is a big podcast.
And subscribe, rate, review.
5 stars, please. We need to go much faster, Pony.
Oh, is it my turn?
Dude, I have 6 teams left, and we're at the 39.
Steelers. Russell Wilson hurt to start camp. Is this the opening Justin Fields needs to be the week 1 starter? Yes. It's the only chance he has to be the week 1 starter is if something happens to Russell Wilson and Tomlin, who is already mesmerized by Fields' athleticism and potential. If he sees things now and he just can't bring himself to go back and put this guy on the bench and make him a return man and gadget player and package player in the offense. I thought, and I tried to make this point on my radio show on Thursday, and I'm going to continue to do it if he misses more than one day. Russell Wilson, who's the ultimate try-hard guy and leader guy, to have him miss the first day of practice because of an injury, and then you come out and say the injury's not a big deal, I'm not buying that. Like, they're not really practicing hard. They're not in pads yet. It's basically mini camp. If it's a minor injury, you're telling me Russell Wilson, with his attitude and his personality, that he wouldn't just go out there and for a few plays, almost in like a symbolic way, Danny? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is a conspiracy theorist in me, but I tend to think that it's a much bigger injury that they're letting on, that the guy just, you want to be out there, especially somebody like him. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He loves like the team camaraderie BS. He lives off of that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Does. No, that is his fuel. I will leave the Pittsburgh.
The guy went through a warm-up before a game that he wasn't playing in with a pretend team when he was faking high fives to invisible teammates.
Yes. One of the weirder things we've seen in the NFL in the last 5 years. The New Orleans Saints. I had a few different things for this, but I'll just ask you. Are you still holding any Derek Carr stock?
No, I got rid of it. I'm out on him.
All of it?
Yes.
So no Clint Kubiak hire, no Alvin Kamara, none of that can bring you back.
I'm out. And if I'm wrong and I sold it too low and I sold it too soon, so be it. I used to be one of these guys that liked him. Last year was just so painful, and
You're done.
I'm mad at myself. I made a Derek Carr and I made a Kenny Pickett mistake, and I'm hoping I can redeem myself this season with some of my predictions. Proof that the fan base there is completely apathetic. Week 1 game tickets. This is the cheapest secondary market game. Panthers and Saints in New Orleans, the Superdome. That is such a raucous place. You think their fans, just for the party, would want to show up there in week 1. The get-in price is like $25. So they look at it. What's that?
We should go.
Well,
you're going to such a crap game.
You got Bears Titans week 1, buddy.
No, I know what I have. All right, let's go. Next
Browns. Team. Kevin Stefanski announces he'll continue to call the offensive plays. Has a defending coach of the year ever been under more pressure? You don't have to actually have to answer that and think about, guys, but doesn't it feel like
Matt Nagy? Yeah, okay, no, he wasn't. Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
I mean, they love to fire coaches in Cleveland. They do it all the time. And Deshaun Watson, there's all kinds of questions about. You've eliminated a scapegoat. I mean, if Watson does not perform well, it's all on you. It's entirely on you. You can't.
Well, I mean, some of it's on the front office for the trade. But you know what it is? It's that they don't feel like an 11-win team. It's that nobody really knows how they won 11 games last year. And the Joe Flacco lightning in a bottle thing is obviously not possible again, given that he's not on the team. What, 5 different quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Won a game for Cleveland last year. Like, it all just seemed so fluky, even though the roster is good. Like, I'm not saying that the roster isn't good. The roster is very good. They have depth, but that level of turnover at quarterback is so hard to replicate. So I don't know that he's under that. Like, I don't think there's a world, like, if they go 6-11 this year,
I think he's going to get fired. I don't think he'll be back next year. I think they'll finish in last place, and Stefanski will be shown the door there.
I'd be happy to take that bet with you, good sir. Speaking of repeating history, perfect for my next team, Tampa Bay. Any shot they repeat the success of last year?
Of course. There is. I'm not predicting it. I just gave you my coming to the Atlanta end of things, and also believing that Carolina has a chance to be a sleeper team. When you phrase it that way, yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield has now had a couple of good seasons. The offensive weapons are still there. Offensive line gets healthy. Defense is usually coached well because it's Todd Bowles, and they've invested in that unit. So I don't think it's out of the question. I just would not predict Baker Mayfield to put 2 seasons like the one he just had back-to-back out there.
I would completely agree with you on that. It felt like an outlier, but Baker is, I mean, listen, he's talented. He's a former number 1 overall pick. And I mean, sign Tristan Wirfs and keep it going. Like, sneaky, incredible season from last year.
Jaguars. Should the casual NFL fan who listens to this podcast know who Tyson Campbell is?
I mean, why do you ask that question?
Because of the amount of money that he just got, and I think most people would look around and say, who the hell is that guy?
It's such a premium position, though, man.
Yes, but even at that position, Deion Sanders, Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson, we tend to know who these guys are. I think the vast majority of people if Tyson Campbell blew a fart in their face, they'd have no idea who the guy was.
Well, don't you think that's the same? I mean, do people know who Jalen Johnson is?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. He's very outspoken. He does a radio show with you. But also, Jalen Johnson, did he get $77 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
He got exactly $77 million.
I mean, Jalen Johnson contract. He got 4 years, $76 million.
Okay. Well,
it's a premium position, man. It's the price of doing business in the NFL.
Well, you know what then? Can I double up here along those lines with a team?
Please.
Titans, they signed Jamal Adams. Why are so many big-name veteran defensive backs still available? If it's a premium position, every time on this podcast last year when the topic of the Cowboys defense came up, we didn't talk about Stephon Gilmore like he was ready for the old folks home. We made him out like he was a good player. His ass is a free agent. Simmons in Denver, his ass is a free agent. Diggs, free agent. I mean, I could keep going. There's 2 or 3 more guys. Very odd.
The safety market and the corner market is certainly different for sure. But if we're talking money,
Gilmore's a safety now, Danny?
Say again?
I said Gilmore's a safety now, Danny.
Yes, well, that depresses your value.
I'm saying I don't think he is. I'm saying Gilmore's still a corner. Why is he not on a team?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Rams and Niners. I'll combine these 2 teams if we're talking money. Who's got the bigger contractual problem? Niners with Ayuk and Trent Williams or the Rams with Stafford?
I think it's the 49ers. And here's why I say that. Because it's multiple guys and it's dominoes and it's one thing affects the next. And I think they are, look, I'm still picking them to make the playoffs this year. And I think that they can still get to a Super Bowl. But there used to be a thing we talked about every year, the Super Bowl hangover, where the team that lost the Super Bowl the next season tended to have a bad year, miss the playoffs, finish with a losing season, etc. With the Rams, we saw them win it and turn into one of the worst teams in the NFL. Now, a lot of that was offensive line injury and Stafford injury. I'm not predicting that'll happen with San Francisco, but teams rise and fall in the NFL really fast. And I just think that there's a lot there that could lead to their demise in a very short amount of time, Danny, given all the money issues they have. And still, I think legitimate questions about the quarterback's feasibility long-term as a really good player.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very healthy situation, obviously, but Stafford's made so much damn money that I don't think they're going to let that be an actual thing. Trent Williams, he's got a legit beef. He's the 5th highest paid left tackle. He should be number 1 with a bullet.
And no guaranteed money on his contract.
Right. So that's a legit beef. Ayuk feels like it's ending in a trade. That's a legit beef. Stafford's made $1 gazillion and wants a little bit more guaranteed, but they'll work that out. He's still a top 10 quarterback. He'll be fine.
Next up is the Raiders. We've done this before on here, but it bears mentioning again because of what happened at the start of camp. These friggin' bozos. Now, it's always good that there's a foil and there's a team that tries to be the villain, and that's been the Raiders' mantra, ever since Al Davis became the owner and fought the NFL and sued the NFL and moved the team around and everything else. You're showing up to training camp and you got a Kermit the Frog puppet that you put a Chiefs jersey on and you gave him curly hair and you got guys on your team on video going viral, mocking Mahomes, making fun of Mahomes, doing Mahomes voice impressions. Are you trying? The Bears and Redskins played that game. What was the final score? 73-0.
Yeah.
In the NFL championship, where there were 8 interceptions in that game. Are they trying to lose to the Chiefs 73-0?
Dude, they did the thing where they did the victory lap around Arrowhead when they won the game, and then they got curb stomped the next time. Yes, they like to poke the bear. They're very dumb.
But I one of my rules in sports has always been, in order to poke bear, you have to have a big gun. They don't. They've got like they're poking it with a twig. We like Gardner Minshew, but they're holding a Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell quarterback competition. They haven't won a playoff game since Rich Gannon was there. Shut your bleeping mouth, man. Do something.
Do something. Just for time purposes, I'm going to combine these teams. Arizona, year 2 of Jonathan Gannon, fully healthy Kyler Murray, massive draft class. Seattle, our guy Gino, youngest coach in the NFL, Mike McDonald. Who's the more intriguing upside play in the NFC West?
Well, it's Arizona, but I like both teams. I mean, I think both teams are going to make the playoffs. Yes,
What?
I do.
So you have 3 NFC West teams making the playoffs, and
I do.
one
I
of
have the
them.
Rams out.
Oh, okay. Well, that's dumb. But go ahead.
Why is that dumb? You wanted to put the entire NFC North in the playoffs like it's 1994 all over again.
That's true. That's true. I shouldn't say dumb. That's mean. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was
Make
it
the
dumb
case.
when I said the Rams were going to go from a horrible team to a good team last year? No. That was scoffed at almost universally.
Was it dumb when you said that Kenny Pickett was going to be Joe Montana?
It's like I've self-owned that multiple times here in this episode, right? Like you're throwing it back in my face like I'm embarrassed or I'm ashamed of it, which I am, but at least I admit where I was wrong and take ownership of it. No, I love Arizona, and Kyler Murray I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but I'm like intrigued by him again. I think because of Marvin Harrison Jr. and the coach, what he was able to do with that team last year far exceeded my expectations. I think their roster has gone from like maybe 30th in the league to closer to average. The tight end there, McBride, is very good. We know that.
Lost 5 games by 1 score.
Harris Johnson
Played hard.
Yeah, like I'm on the Cardinals bandwagon going into the season. I've already bet them over 7.5 wins. Last one, the Broncos. I've called Sean Payton a quarterback whisperer. He's staging a 3-man quarterback competition where it's not a 3-man competition in name only, and it's really going to one guy. They're legitimately splitting reps with the first team between Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham, and Bo Nix. What was the point of using a first-round pick on Bo Nix, who's our age? You do everything in your power to get him ready to play day one. The hell with Zach Wilson, who'd rather screw his mom's friends, and Jarrett Stidham, who's been a journeyman quarterback for almost 10 years. Like, you commit to Bo Nix. If you use the first-round pick, he's 25 years old. Everything you're doing is to give him a chance to play, not decide among these 3 guys who's going to be your week 1 starter. That's so stupid.
We talked about it. The Penix pick took more heat. The Bo Nix pick might have been the worst pick of the draft. It made no sense at the time.
If you're going to make it, have conviction in it and say, this is our guy, and then cultivate him and get him ready. And if you don't think he's ready, then do what you said the Patriots should do with Drake May. Bring him along slowly, have him work and watch, and get the other guys ready to play.
We said that right after the draft. It made no sense. They've got nothing there for him other than the coach. I'm with you. It's very, very bizarre. Thank you to Spencer Ray. He's our producer, but he's vacationing. He deserves it. Robbie Triano doing a great job.
Nice Italian kid. Good job, Robbie.
In for Spencer, dealing with Pony's mic issues the whole show. Tell a friend, First and Pod. Peace.